Welcome to Drawing in Architecture Volume 2. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I developed this floor plan / master plan and give you a step-by-step walkthrough on how I approach this design process. I'm going to be covering all the techniques from Lineweights, materiality, tectonic detailing, trees, and just general tips to communicate your proposal using hand drawing. So let's get into the process. So I've got my plans set up. This is an existing building, as you can see. It's always good to print out the existing conditions and understand what you're working with. But for the sake of this stage, I'm going to be working using the master plan and the 1:100 floor plan. And then after that, I'll start to think about how that translates into a section and axonometric. I've set up my base plan. This is the existing building. Now I'm just going to draw the parts that I want to keep. So now we can go in with my ruler, pencil, and my circle ruler, which I like to use for trees, especially when you're at a 1:200 scale like this. Setting up this point as my entry, just some circles, because there is some vegetation that sits out this side. But graphically, I just want to show that there's actually trees here. After that, I like to do a little bit of a detail showing the outline of the tree. But I'll probably do this in marker after I've finished my whole floor plan. Now that I've sort of set up my existing structure and my two axis points, I'm just going to draw an outline of the zones that I want. Keep in mind, I'm thinking about the scale to this. So this is roughly 3 meters wide. So where this point meets here, I just want to draw a line out here as a reference. I think that would be a good spot to put some sort of vegetation / trees sitting in this. Keep in mind, when I'm doing this, I'm actually using different shapes to indicate that not every single tree is the same size. Now you can see I've got this little thing here that meets the existing, but I actually want this wall to be thicker and sort of uneven. Start to think about how these internal spaces work. And this is just space planning at the moment, but in a more refined manner. So I'm thinking about how this entrance works. You can walk in each side and then you come out on this side. And at the moment, I'm not worrying about the line weights as per se. That will come as I start to develop these thicker walls in the spaces. I actually want to create another axis point which sits off this walkway, and it sort of meets this point over here. Now this is becoming almost like a courtyard entry. So now we can think about this internal space here. And I'll very lightly draw the windows in because I don't want them to overpower the existing. And then this space here becomes interesting because it almost could act as a staircase that goes up. And then that sort of defines this space as the main area for entering the building. Maybe there's some sort of car park up here, because in the brief this is all blank space. So you're sort of working with this existing structure but building upon this new design which sits within the frame of the existing. So now that I've set up my different angles and my program uses, setting this up means I can now start to explore how the spaces inside work, and then start to add line work and make these drawings a lot more clearer than what they are. So I'm just going to continue to add details. There's a little gap in this space here, sits in the middle of these axes, and it kind of meets this point here. So what I'm kind of doing is I'm thinking about how all my geometries meet and what the purpose of each space is. So this being a public space, I do want to separate it from the entry up here, but being smart about how I define my zoning here is key. So I'm thinking this space out here almost becomes like a kitchen or restaurant area as some walls, and as we develop this further we can work out how this space actually looks out to the vineyard out here. Some planters in this little space here, and these planters sort of separate the two zones, making sure that even during this stage I'm thinking about wall thicknesses and what my final output is going to look like when I start to refine using pen. And maybe there's some louvers facing this way. Out in this external spaces out here, this space becomes sort of a private excluded zone, sort of maybe a private walkway that sits back out in this space. So you can enter from here and you can enter from here. So this angle is almost defining the entry points to the whole project. So now that we've set up all of our lines in our floor plan, you can see that it's sort of all coming together, but it's missing that sort of depth that you would get, because at the moment it is just a bunch of lines. So the next step is going to be adding thicknesses, materiality, and whilst I'm still designing, I'm still developing my hierarchy with my line weights. So the first thing I want to do is start off with a 0.8 and just go over all of the thick lines first. So as you can see, as I work through this, I'm just choosing the walls that are being cut at the moment. I'm not thinking about the trees or the paths or the other elements in my project, just the cut elements, and doing them in a 0.8. So now that all these walls are cut, I can use a technique to show the new and existing. So I'm just gonna make the existing this dark gray hatch, very roughly just going with gray load. This doesn't have to be sort of clean, it can be messy, because I think messy sometimes gives you a better sketch when you're presenting. And now that we've got this laid out, I would go ahead and add in materiality into the cut element. For this, I'd probably just use a 0.2 because you don't want this to be too thick. You just want it to be a subtle indication of cutting. Just sort of showing in these spaces that there is block work that you're cutting through. And then I would go ahead and do the same for the new. This probably wouldn't work with brick. This would have to be some sort of block work because it is sort of rounded edges. But the idea is that you're thinking about the materiality of your project while you're developing like this. Maybe over here we have some concrete bits in this part, which defines the entrance to the restaurant / public area over here. And then maybe this down here is just concrete as well. And now we can probably start to think about the details of this entire composition. We can start to draw in little details like the trees. Now I've got my 0.1 here. I might just add in just some little details to show that this is a tree. As long as you're consistent with your communication of what a tree is, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So we've got our trees in here. We will be adding some more detail to these to give it a little bit more depth than what they have, but I want to see how the whole plan looks before I start to mess with the look of these. Let's grab our 0.1 for the stairs over here. I think this 0.1's running out of ink just quietly. And I have drawn some sort of dashed line that sits above the stairs here because there'll be another level up here. So just indicating that on your plans while you're developing is super important. Add in some more trees, walkway against the existing building. And I might add in a little wall here for the stairs. Light there. A few more little trees. Just realizing that I have a lot of trees in this concept design. But we love trees. Nothing wrong with smacking down lots of trees for the environment. So I think here there was going to be some sort of walkway line. Maybe it comes up here to give it some space. I'm just going to draw some dashed lines roughly where things were going in the initial stage. So now, as you can see, as I sort of keep building upon these line weights, it's starting to become more clear what's happening, and the thickness between the walls is becoming evident that this is sort of a screen and this is a big concrete barrier that you can walk down here. Maybe have some sort of glass screen. So I'll draw these little things in here, and this is where you can have heaps of fun with the detail aspect, because you shouldn't be restricting yourself to one thing. Some glass screens in there, and they're more of just an indication of the axis rather than a element that you're designing. So now that we've got our base done, we can start adding depth with pencil and just adding more and more detail as the plan starts to come to life. So you can see I've just drawn in my vineyards over here. And I'm not being scared to overdraw my lines either, even though this is a more refined master plan. And now that we've got this sort of very strong composition here, we can start to have fun with the shading using our pencil again, the set square, to do this. This pencil is crooked. I don't know what's going on with that one. Let's get another one. Maybe I want it to stop just over here. Now I want this one to sit on this angle. My purpose is to try and explain that there's different languages happening within my proposal. And now for the trees, we can just give it a little bit more of a sketchy look. And at the start, you should probably just be doing this anyway, but it is hard. But the idea is to give the drawing some depth, because with these straight lines, you sort of miss that a little bit if you don't add some hatches to the drawing. So then when you give it this depth, there's obviously little moments with these axis points. So there might be a break in the floor there because that point is there. And these are the sort of things that you find out just by sketching over the top. Maybe there's some things happening in here. So basically I would just continue to add layers and layers of depth to the drawing, grab some more tracing paper and start sketching over the top of this floor plan, because the more you sort of develop this, you'll start to see things in your proposal that you don't sort of see when you're developing on a computer. So now you're really starting to see how even the smallest of details can add to the whole composition of the one drawing, even if it's just a rough little grey lead sketch. Now I'm just going to add in final little details to this, which is going to be the room names. I feel like this gives your drawing so much depth because it's not just line work. You're actually assigning a program to the space after you've designed it. And there you have it. We have our final floor plan / master plan of a new project. In the next part, I'm going to be pulling out some sections of this drawing and showing you what my thought process was behind each one of these angles in relation to the site plan and developing this concept further. So I hope you enjoyed this volume of drawing in architecture, and I'll see you in the next video.